Hey, I'm Ryan Reynolds.
Recently, I asked Mint Mobile's legal team if big wireless companies are allowed to raise prices due to inflation. They said yes. And then when I asked if raising prices technically violates those onerous two-year contracts, they said, "What the f*** are you talking about, you insane Hollywood ass?" So to recap, we're cutting the price of Mint Unlimited from $30 a month to just $15 a month.
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See details.
Today on CityCast DC, we are talking snow, Jimmy Carter, and pandas. I'm here with CityCast's Julia Karen and Axios DC's Anna Spiegel. Today is Friday, January 10th. I'm Michael Schaefer, and here's what DC is talking about. Hey, Anna.
How's it going?
Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Hey, Julia.
Hey, Mike.
So, you guys, it snowed like 8 inches
Yes.
or so Sunday night. And it being the end of the week, we're still talking about it because DC and snow. And we're not just talking about it. It's still sort of affecting people's lives. What's happening, Julia?
Yeah. So as people know, we got hit with roughly 8 inches of snow Sunday going into Monday. Everywhere basically was closed Monday, Tuesday. Wednesday, DCPS was open, but everywhere else surrounding it, so like Montgomery County Public Schools, Arlington County Public Schools, the lot of them were still closed. As of Thursday's recording, a bunch of schools are in 2-hour delays, but like Prince George's County is still closed.
And Fairfax.
Yeah, and Fairfax too. So still affecting people. Maybe today stuff is open. We will see. Maybe we get another 2-hour delay, but all I know is my dog frolicked and had the best time and thought it was, God's gift to her, specifically for her. So
if I can just be the annoying DC in winter person.
Do it. Commit to the
That's
bit.
insane. Like Fairfax County, like more than 1 million people, one of the biggest school systems in the country as a result, loses 4 days for 8 inches of snow.
Yes.
This seems suboptimal.
People in Maine would be horrified.
So your co-host, Mike, Bridget Todd, made this point in our January guide that her tip or PSA was basically, if you're like a Midwesterner or like a New Englander, don't tell us that this isn't a big deal. It's 8 inches of snow back in Minnesota or whatever. We'd get 3 feet and it'd be fine. She doesn't want to hear it, but I do want to talk about it.
Bridget's absolutely right, but I'm not a Midwesterner.
So I wonder if the rule doesn't apply if we're from DC proper or from the area. Yeah, I mean, it's 8 inches of snow. Muriel Bowser and her team were prepared to clear the streets. I saw snowplows prepared, even near my parents' house in Montgomery County in Maryland. They were getting ready to go, but I don't understand how we just can't clear the roads of 8 inches of snow.
Can't we? I mean, it seemed pretty competently done where I live in DC.
Part of it is like the main roads get cleared and then the side streets don't. That's part of the big issue.
I live on a side street. It's fine.
Anna, are you on a side street? Like my side street and my alleyway were an absolute mess. It was like a skating rink. I couldn't get out.
Yeah, the alleyway is tough. I mean, I live on DuPont Circle, and so it's pretty icy on the side roads, but it's still doable. I mean, I went to Whole Foods yesterday. It was not super treacherous. So I'm just waiting for the shovel shaming to start because, in DC, people have to shovel their own sidewalks. And there's been some very inadequate shoveling, including outside some big buildings and businesses that should have had it done.
Here's my $1 million idea. Here's my tens of dollars idea. I think that DC, the same way there's like a night mayor that's supposed to, promote or push policies about bars and entertainment, nightlife, we should have an official snow ethicist. Around this shovel shaming thing, there are houses in every neighborhood, there's one in mine, which are like pretty bad at clearing the sidewalks, especially the ones that are on a corner because like the side of the house that they don't come out on, they might not notice. DC doesn't, as a matter of course, plow its alleys, and which is, understandable. That's a lot of roadway, but for a lot of people, that's where you park. That's the thing that will allow you to get your car out. That's also how you, for a lot of people, walk in and out of your house. Who's supposed to clear them? Like, are citizens supposed to take it themselves? Like, what part of your alley are you supposed to clear? What about the person who doesn't do? I feel like there's just a lot of issues here that we could use some adjudication on.
Yeah, I like the idea of a snow czar.
Well, funny you ask if there should be a snow czar, Anna. There's a guy, his name is Warnick West. He is the DC Department of Public Works snow response coordinator. And he talked to WMU and he basically just told people, get off the road, let the snowplows do their thing.
But I'm talking about a snow ethicist, like somebody who can adjudicate the inevitable neighborhood hot button conflicts that arise that may or may not involve the law.
I wonder if we could get Warnick West onto a snowplow of his own and just like go into different neighborhoods to settle disputes. I wonder if he could be the ethicist too.
But you're already seeing the shaming on social media, which I always appreciate. People are like, this guy didn't, shovel his sidewalk, and now I've seen 3 people slip. But yes, there's a more organized way to do this.
In the current system, what's like, do you think is like, would be the appropriate way to deal with like a person or an institution that has, failed to do their, I think, legal and certainly like Menschy obligation?
I mean, if you're DC traffic enforcement and you were out putting people's cars, getting them tickets over the snowstorm, which people posted about and I thought was hilarious. DDOT apparently never sleeps. I imagine that you could like find people and be like, hey, like this is a hazard to the public. Please shovel your area of the sidewalk.
Well, technically, you can be fined. The city can fine businesses. Yes, the city can fine businesses $150 and individuals $25, I think, for the first infraction for messy walkways. But I don't know how that's enforced. I don't know who's out kind of patrolling and knocking on doors and issuing tickets. I've never also heard of a snow ticket before. So if you have a snow ticket, let us know.
As a citizen, what should you do? I mean, like Spiegel said, she lives on T Street. There's people near her who have failed to clear their walks. It's like a skating rink. Like, should she knock on the door and politely ask, like, hey, would you mind like doing what you're supposed to do? Is it cool to like put a picture of their house on social media and shame them? Like, what do we think is the right move here?
So I think one of the moves is to see if the people inside the house are actually physically able to move the snow. Like when I was growing up in Bethesda, we had a couple of neighbors who were kind of elderly and literally could not do it. Like they couldn't physically move the snow. And if you get a lot of snow, it's really heavy. It can really throw out your back. It can throw out your legs if you don't do it properly. So as a good Samaritan, like I would say, knock and say, hey, are you able to clear your walkway? If you can't, like happy to help, right? Like it is more work. It's not, everyone's fair share, but like that's what you get for living in a society. I think if you're someone who is able to, this is an easy job to like pay a kid $20 to shovel your walkway. This is what my brother and I did growing up. We would shovel people's driveways for like $20 or something a pop, and it was great.
Those are all very proactive and lovely solutions. I think that's much better.
But my thing is, I know in the real world that they won't actually work because people can be jerks. Although I don't know, Mike Schaefer, like your kids had school off, and
2
I know
days.
2 days, and you had a question about like, are there more snow days? That I know you want answered generally on principle.
Yeah, what's the story?
So in 2014, there was this Washington Post piece, and it has these fabulous graphs. And they basically took the measurements of snow from around all the local airports. So like DCA, Dulles, and BWI. And the short answer is that, like, yes, there are more general snow days because some of the snow is increasing. On Washington Reddit, there's a graph that shows that snow in DC has actually gone down over the years, which I thought was fascinating. And their graph was over the last 132 years, so a little wider scope than the Washington Post piece. But when it really spikes, like in 2010, when we had Snowmageddon and I didn't have school for 2 weeks, it really, really spikes.
Yeah, so that's my sense is that there's climate change or whatever, there's less snowfall. But when there is, the same amount of snow causes more days off than it used to. And that seems weird because actually, I mean, again, to judge from the city government's performance, which didn't used to be always that good, it's like they did a pretty good job of clearing out this snowfall. So why is it that there were more days off? And is it that we kind of like snow days, at least people who aren't parents of young children? Is it that we've sort of built in this because they happen less frequently, they seem like a right and a privilege? I don't know, but the idea that 8 inches is not like a small snowstorm, but it's not a blizzard either, that would lead to 2, 3, 4 days off. That seems like that didn't used to happen.
But they aren't really snow days like they used to be, right? With the age of, post-pandemic or, post the height of pandemic and telework, everyone working virtually. It's like, I talked to one bar owner because I was, rounding up snow day specials. All the bars offer, discounts on spiked cider and hot cocoa and things. And he was saying, snow days used to be a huge party. They'd open at noon, the bar would be packed. Now it's like, a small demographic of, kind of usually younger people, definitely, without kids, without, necessarily like the responsibilities at work are trickling in, but it's not like the free for all it used to be when you could really disconnect from work.
Right. It's only the kids, I mean, at least for the first few snow days, that really have them off. And that actually makes it more enervating because like some parents are still like in the house trying to do their work.
Schaefer, I'm curious about what you think about the DC Snowball Association and the giant snowball fight, because I know you've long entertained a theory that DC is a land of adult children who like to drink cereal milk cocktails and play kickball and delay their age.
Right. It is true. I've always, it's sort of like, it's like summer camp or boarding school, but the chaperones are away forever. And you have like adult kickball leagues and organized snowball fights. But the second part of that, though, is like that can be kind of fun. I don't know that it happens in many other places, big cosmopolitan cities, but not that there's anything wrong with it.
Did you know in DC it's actually illegal to toss household batteries in the trash? Batteries have to be recycled, and Call to Recycle is here to help. DC's official battery recycling program has convenient locations all over the city where you can drop off all kinds of household batteries. Think AA, AAA, even those rechargeable ones. Just find the drop-off spot closest to you by going to calltorecycle.org/locator. That's with the number 2. So again, that's calltorecycle.org/locator. Because recycling your batteries isn't just the law, it also helps protect our environment and our community. So clear out that junk drawer and do a little good. Go to calltorecycle.org/locator today. When it's cold outside, there is nothing better than a warmly lit restaurant and a cozy 3-course meal. And Winter Restaurant Week makes that actually accessible. It's happening this year from Monday, January 27th through Sunday, February 2nd. There are more than 250 participating restaurants this year, spanning over 70 different cuisines. So I love going to Restaurant Week because it's a chance to try out places that otherwise might be a little out of my budget. And there's something both fancy and relaxing about sitting down to a meal where you just pick from a curated menu at the start and then just let the courses come to you. Participating restaurants are offering brunch and lunch for either $25 or $35 per person. Dinners range from $40 to $65. Some spots even have drink pairings, which is very much right up my alley. Visit rwdmv.com to see restaurant menus and make reservations. Metropolitan Washington Restaurant Week is presented by the Restaurant Association, Metropolitan Washington, and Events DC.
Another thing that snarled DC traffic this week was the death of Jimmy Carter, who lay in state in the Capitol for a couple days. Long lines to see him despite the cold. Funeral was Thursday. You know, this is one of these rituals that happens because it's the capital of the country and that Washington is like pretty good at putting on. There was a sort of duality about the Carter commentary that I think really shows off the big divide between like hometown DC and company town DC. The stuff about Carter the politician, one of the recurring points was that Washington, by which it meant like power, influence, political Washington, couldn't stand the guy. They thought of him and his group of people from Georgia as a bunch of hicks. Carter didn't know how to like go to the right dinner parties and grease the wheels and seize the moment with the political class that would have enabled him to get things done. The flip side is hometown DC felt a real bond with the guy, in part because he sent his daughter, Amy, to DC public schools, in fact, to a historically Black public school before she went to Hardy Middle School, and, supported constitutional amendment that would have provided full congressional voting power to citizens of the city, and otherwise saw the kind of injustice of the city's political situation. And these two things, you couldn't get more opposite in the reactions, which I suppose probably illustrates why he was not politically a success. That's the kind of vibe in the city. And I think it also explains at least some of the people who waited in line to pay their respects.
Yeah, I saw a stat that it was 23,000 people waited on Tuesday to go see Jimmy Carter in the snow. Like, that's incredible. I don't know anyone else who would get like 23,000 people to go see someone like at a wake. Like, that's kind of incredible. I also say this as someone who like was not alive during Jimmy Carter's time and like vaguely studied him like during American history. So like obviously we talk about like big or little W Washington. He like sent his kid to public school. In terms of big W Washington, like why was he not successful? I mean, Mike, you said that he, people thought he was like a hick. Like what was his deal? If you're someone like me who was not born during the Carter administration.
Well, the line is always he was an engineer by training. He approached, problems in this very logical way and didn't understand that in American politics with its divisions of power and its sort of unelected power centers like the media and the legal industry and so on, it's not just about laying out the optimal solution and having everybody logically come around to your side. It's about personal relationships and log rolling and all these other things that kind of inform a lot of the sort of political city's economy. And he was remarkably bad at that. And I think, for those of us who live here, for all we talk about, being independent and, resenting the federal presence, there's also, a lot of people work in and around politics and kind of like the rituals of politics and like their own role as the sort of stagehands of the nation. And I think it's why presidential funerals, even for, presidents like George H.W. Bush when he died, like presidents who do very badly with the electorate here, why there is sort of a coming together, not just of the political class, but also residents who live here to pay respects and so on.
Mm-hmm. I think one of my favorite stories from him, in D.C. is the Carter homes. He came back after his presidency and built homes in Southeast D.C. with Habitat for Humanity. They're still standing today and residents are still living in them today. I don't know any other president who has done something similar to that.
This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. The new year brings new health goals and wealth goals. Protecting your identity is an important step. LifeLock monitors millions of data points per second. If your identity is stolen, LifeLock's restoration specialist will fix it, guaranteed or your money back. Resolve to make identity health and wealth part of your New Year's goals with LifeLock. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
Well, in Jimmy Carter's years, pandas were already here. That's one of the things that he does not predate. And a rare bunch of things because the man was 100 years old. And pandas, are having arrived in the early 70s. They had their run. We said goodbye to pandas about a year ago, and now they're back. And for those of us here who are not necessarily panda admirers, we sort of shrug. But Anna, you guys had a report this week about the panda economy, which apparently a lot of jobs and a lot of profits result from the pandas being here.
Yeah, it's a big boost for local business. You have hotels running these elaborate panda packages. I call the Watergate. They're doing a kind of zocation special with this like panda print pajamas and panda cookies, and you get round trip transportation to the zoo. Runs, includes the room, and it depends on the night you stay, but it runs around $600. So you have to be a big panda enthusiast for that. But even kind of on a smaller scale, the bakery across from the zoo is doing all sorts of panda pops and cookies. And there's a whole pop-up panda-themed bamboo bar across from the zoo at Zook's Counter starting Friday, where you can drink pandaritas. And
what's in a pandarita?
It's like a margarita, but panda themed.
But what makes it panda themed?
I think they have bamboo straws. They have like edible bamboo garnishes. They got a lot of fun kind of like tiki style glassware. They're doing like, kind of a jungle bamboo theme. They even have bamboo toilet paper in the bathroom. They said they're going top to bottom. And yeah, so they're going, I think people just want something to get in this, it's kind of like the cherry blossom pop-up bars and the cherry blossom mania. People want to come together for something that's kind of feel good and especially, there's two big events in DC in like January, which is pandas and inauguration. I think people feel very good about one and, a little more mixed emotions about the other.
Yeah, that makes my theory of DC's affection for pandas, but part of it might be just that like it's one of the very few civic things here that has nothing to do with politics or DC's role as the, nation's capital. Like our teams are called like nationals and commanders and things like that. And pandas, like they're not, it's not like an eagle. It's not like an admirable, like noble national symbol of an animal. They're goofy, black and white, roly-poly Chinese bears. And the the unrelatedness, I think, particularly this month, when, as you say, like the other thing that hotels are trying to bring people here for is the inauguration at this incredibly polarized, toxic moment. There's a joy in pandas being related to nothing.
Absolutely. Although, you could argue that panda diplomacy, they've always been a sign of the relationship between China and the United States. And, I was at the zoo when they were announced that they were coming back, and the Chinese ambassador was there, and he gave, a long speech about how the panda is related to, the sign of friendship between the U.S. and China, and talked about, the environmental impact of the relationship and the environmental impact in China. So there is definitely, there's another layer there if you want to go there, but you don't have to go there.
I was going to say, that was the layer that I was going to say is there is this sort of soft power thing going on. And especially we've got a president coming in who said he's going to be tough on China. Do we think that Trump could get rid of the pandas and DC would be up in arms?
Well, they've got a 10-year deal now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're locked in.
Yes.
But also, is there evidence that, that the elements of our politics, mostly on the far right, that have made a big show of we're going to diss China this way and that way, that they have adopted an anti-panda stance? Is the expectation that the lines of people at the zoo are going to be entirely blue voters?
I don't know. I think that they're still pretty pro-panda. How can you be anti-panda?
Well, let me count the ways. But we've done a whole episode on that.
That'd be interesting if it extends to the zoo.
Spiegel, what day is the panda rollout? And I understand that there's one rollout for members of the zoo and then a general public thing. How does this all work?
Talk about, in terms of fundraising, pandas are historically really good moneymakers for zoos just because they get, donors and they get a lot more memberships. So the zoo is doing a panda preview for members and their guests only starting today. And it's going to run, I think, through the 19th. And then the pandas debut for the public on Friday, January 24th.
And is this the members only run?
This is the members only run.
If I became a member tomorrow, could I access that? Or do you have to be a member for a while?
No, so they started the lottery in December. I remember there were so many people that signed on, they crashed the system. Depending on what tier of membership you signed up for, you could bring a certain number of guests. So if you got the more expensive membership, you could bring more guests. So if you could befriend a zoo member today, then you're in luck. And you could push their family and loved ones aside. But otherwise, you're going to have to wait till the January 24th.
Anna, you talking about membership for pandas has reminded me, you could become a member of CityCast today. You did not need to hop on in December. You can hop on anytime. It's $8 a month. Go to membership.citycast.fm. What are some of the fun little perks you get as a member? I know it's not viewings of the pandas, but maybe it's just as good.
You get ad-free listening, and you get invitations to special events.
And it does really help the thing that we do every week to bring you guys the news. So if you like local journalism, if you like Anna going on and on about how Duke's Canter has a panda pop-up bar, and also there's $600 hotel panda theme packages, memberships.citycast.fm. Go for it.
Spiegel, awesome to see you.
Great to see you guys. It was so fun. Thanks for having me on.
Good to see you too, Julia.
Same to you, Mike.
And that is all for today here on CityCast DC. Our production team this week was Priyanka Tilve, Julia Karen, Ash Durbin, and Elizabeth Kama. Newsletter editors Kayla Cote-Stemmerman and Natalia Aldana wrote our fabulous newsletter Hey DC this week. And our hosts are Bridget Todd and me, Michael Schaefer from Politico. Music is by Alex Roldan. If you enjoyed the show, why not tell everyone about it over your next Panda Teeny? We'll be back Monday morning with more news from around the city. Bye.